Okay, so this year Erev Pesach is Shabbos. I believe it happened when we were in the farmhouse once, and that was my first experience with it. It did. It happened 5 years ago.
Oh,
I was in the
okay.
first time.
Before that, right,
Yeah.
right.
Okay, so because Erev Pesach falls on Shabbos, what's different? So what's the problem? Normally we burn chametz on Erev Pesach. We can't burn anything on Shabbos because burning is one of the malachos. Uh, we can't eat chametz after I think it's 10:15 in Chicago this year on Erev Pesach, but we have to eat a suda and and two sudas probably shalosh sudas also. So there's several issues that come up. So we'll talk about some that we maybe didn't think about, and then we will talk about things that we what we do so that everything will be um, so we'll know how to do everything correctly. So the first thing, believe it or not, is actually this Shabbos. Instead of the Shabbos Hagadol drasha being Shabbos Hagadol, the purpose of the Shabbos Hagadol drasha, so everyone knows what to do. But because it's Erev Pesach and it's a few hours before Pesach, to actually have the Shabbos Hagadol drasha on Shabbos Hagadol is too late. So this year, the Shabbos Hagadol drasha is the week before Shabbos Hagadol. So this Shabbos afternoon at 5:45, I believe it is, my father will probably be talking about many of the same things I'm going to be talking about now. So that's the first thing. The next thing that we have to talk about is the fast of the firstborn. So normally we fast on Erev Pesach, the firstborn. Normally we don't fast, but we have a siyum instead. The problem is we're not allowed to fast on Shabbos unless it's Yom Kippur. So we clearly don't fast the firstborn fast on Shabbos. The question is, do we fast it on Friday? So this year, I didn't look in the calendar if it always works like this. I I don't think it does, but I don't think it always falls out this. But it happened to be that this past year, Asara B'Teves was also on a Friday. The 10th of Teves was on a Friday. So in our calendar, the only fast that could fall out on Friday that we would fast on Friday is Asar B'Teves. So well, Asar B'Teves, which is a few days after Hanukkah enters on Friday, we fast on Friday. Normally, we don't fast on Friday. There's a halacha that we're not supposed to enter Shabbos in an afflicted mood. So we're not supposed to fast and be hangry and hungry coming into Shabbos. So we don't fast on Friday. We fast Asar B'Teves because the Avudram says that because in Zechariah, I believe the pasuk is that about the 10th of Teves, we fast on the 10th of Teves, even if it's on Friday, and according to Abu Drum, they say even if it would fall out on Shabbos, which it can't in our calendar, but we would have to fast the Sarbat Teves on Shabbos. So we only fast uh, the Sarbat Teves on Friday. In a few Mashiach should come and we should have Kiddush HaChodesh through the Sanhedrin. If the witnesses see, depending on when the witnesses see the moon, it's possible that Yom Kippur could fall on Friday. So let that be a problem for us very soon. So the fast of the firstborn is on Thursday. We can't fast on Shabbos. We don't fast on Friday. There are some opinions in Hilchos Shabbos that if there would be a fast on Friday, you would break it very late in the day, right before Shkia, just so you'd eat something before Shabbos. But we're shown to mention that, but we don't do that. We don't fast on Friday. When we fast Asar B'Teves, we fast the whole until we make Kiddush. But for this year, the fast for the firstborn will be on Thursday. Okay, next. We search for chametz the night before Pesach. The night before Pesach is Friday night. We can't go around with a candle or with a flashlight. And we already mentioned we can't burn the chametz on Shabbos either. So this year, the bedika chametz is on Thursday night. We do the bedika the same way we always do. We could put out 10 pieces of bread. I always recommend make sure it's wrapped. Make sure do not put out the bread if you have a pet that might move them. It's we put out 10 pieces. Yeah. And I mean you could put it out and find them yourselves, but if one person puts them out and another one has to find them, the person who puts them out should keep a list of where they put them, so nothing gets lost, or some of the younger people don't fall asleep before the Bedika is concluded. Ravaron said already many decades ago, probably probably at least 70 years ago, he thinks that it's very dangerous. What he said was every year on Bedika's night there were big fires in building fires in Williamsburg because people are under the mattress with a candle and it set fire and it was terrible. So he said it's much better and preferable to use a flashlight. So if you have your flashlight, make sure you have batteries now. So so you put out 10 pieces, use a flashlight. We do it Thursday night. We make a bracha before we search. We do it after it gets dark, but not too late. The halacha is that the bedika is so important. Even though if you have a normal time to learn Torah, you have to do bedika and not go to the base medrash to learn. And you have to do the bedika. And when we're done with the bedika, we make kol chamira, the first kol chamira, declaring chametz ownerless. It's not the final one. So bedika is a regular bedika. It just happens to be Thursday night. Any questions about bedika? Okay. So then Friday morning we save it until Friday. So the chametz that we normally save till the next morning, we're gonna do the same thing Friday. Except there's a big difference. Normally, the chametz is you're not allowed to eat chametz after this year. It'd be 10:15, and we burn chametz by I think 11:33 or something. So this year we're allowed to eat chametz the entire Friday because it's not Erev Pesach. It's Erev Pesach. So the halacha is, though, even though you're allowed to eat chametz the whole day, we want to only burn chametz at the regular time. Because you don't someone to say, oh, last year we burned chametz at 3 in the afternoon, we'll burn chametz at 3 in the afternoon this year too. So in order that people shouldn't make the mistake, we burn chametz by 11:33 this Friday, even though you're still allowed to eat chametz. So you don't have to burn all your chametz this year. So they'll have it to in McCormick. They'll have it at some shuls in Skokie, except when I went last year, it wasn't good. They had like a 55-gallon drum, and there wasn't enough fire, and people with their lulavim, we couldn't burn any chametz. It wasn't good. Yeah, they had. Yeah, I think that's where I ended up going. Also, they had a Bunsen burner also, so they were able to add more fire. So
the fire station also at the Central Park. They used to
Central Park and what?
by the academy.
Oh, that one. Oh, the new one.
Yeah.
They do it there?
They used to.
Oh, they used to?
I mean, last year I did it in the alley,
Okay.
but I also started a fire.
So then they had to stop the burning chametz over there to kill the fire.
Yeah, well, we had a little.
Right. So if you try to burn your own chametz, it's not a great idea, but have a fire extinguisher.
Yeah.
Nearby. No, that's safe. No, it's not necessarily the best idea to burn your own chametz. Also, if you have a whole roll or a whole bagel, they don't burn so well because of the hard outside. No, I'm serious. So if you to put out, I know some people this is sacrilegious, but if you have a bagel, slice it New York style or whatever, which we don't, or I don't know. They slice a bagel if it's a piece of bread, so then it's like pieces of bread, just bagel top and bottom. That'll burn much easier for chametz. That's not a halacha. That's just a pro tip. So we burn chametz the same time we normally do, but you don't have to burn all your chametz. Burn the pieces from the bedika and burn any extra chametz you have. But if you're going to be using challah for Shabbos, you don't have to burn that. And this is very important. We do not make the kol chamira. We do not nullify our chametz when we burn our chametz because we still have 24 hours that we're allowed to eat chametz. So we do not say kol chamira when we burn our chametz. That's a very important thing for this year. Now, with kids, I'm planning on having no chametz in my house already by Friday morning, maybe even on Thursday. but so we actually make the kol chamira on Shabbos morning before 11:33 to renounce all ownership over our chametz.
They can make it pretty good as well.
Pardon?
You can make it be pretty good.
You can make it at shul. You don't have to do it at house.
You don't have to do that.
You don't have to do it at your house. You do it wherever you are. So we'll probably make an announcement a few times at Minyan about it. We sell the chametz at the regular time also, but when we sell the chametz to the goy, we make a condition that people are allowed to use their chametz for 24 more hours till the time that they normally would be using it, or however many hours. And because of that, if someone forgot to sell their chametz, you're allowed to sell it late in the day on Friday, even though Erev Pesach after the Zman Isser, the Gemara, it's the famous Gemara. The Torah took two things that really aren't yours and they made it yours in order that you violate an avera, which means it's a bad thing to violate avera. A bor b'shus harabim, if you dig a pit or put an obstruction in the public thoroughfare, causing someone to get hurt, and owning chametz on Pesach or even Erev Pesach after half the day. So normally it would be too late to sell the chametz. The Torah penalized you for not getting rid of it earlier. So it's not yours, but this year, so you can't, it's too late to sell it, but this year, I don't recommend anyone forgetting to sell their chametz or to authorizing the rabbi to sell your chametz. Hint, hint, we have forms available and we'll make a kinyan if any one of you need to sell your chametz now. Let's not wait. So we can sell chametz later. And if it's Friday night or Shabbos and you forgot to sell some chametz, you can bring a goy over to your house and say, "Here, this is yours. Take it." That works this year, and it's on Shabbos. Also, because normally you can't kasher pots and stuff until after the Zman Isser, but because again the whole Friday isn't Erev Pesach yet, you could kasher up until Shabbos starts. You're not allowed to kasher on Shabbos for multiple reasons. One reason is you can't have the fire or the boiling water because that would be havara on Yantif. I mean on Shabbos. There you would be fixing something by making it kosher for Pesach, and you can't. Masake and mana is a problem also on Shabbos. But for many reasons, you can't kasher on Shabbos ever. But okay, something else to do before Shabbos. It's best to prepare the stuff for the Seder that needs preparing before Shabbos. And what is this? Roast the bone before Shabbos. Hard boil, but we usually hard boil the egg and then we put it near the fire so it looks roasted also with a black spot. Make your charosas, make your salt water, and the Sfarim mentioned check your lettuce. So do all that stuff before Shabbos. You can't do any of those things on Shabbos because you can't prepare on Shabbos for Yantif. And then in regards to so some of the things could potentially be done on Yantif. To check the lettuce on Yantif, I don't know. It's probably better not to, but you can't, even though you're allowed to cook on Yantif for food that you're going to eat that day, but since we don't eat the zroa, there's usually no meat on it anyway. We can't eat it, so that's not something you would be able to roast on Yantif. The egg you would be able to cook on Shabbos. I mean on Yantif if you didn't do it before the Seder, but you'd have to eat the egg on that first day of Yantif because you can't cook it and then you can't cook it not to eat it. I mean, you can cook a lot of food hoping to finish it and have leftovers. That's not a problem. But to cook something that you know is not going to be eaten, like the zroa, you're not allowed to cook that on Yantif. You're only able to cook on Yantif for food that will be consumed by a Jew on that day of Yantif. And then the charosas, if you have already pre-made ingredients, there's actually no problem to make it on Yantif. If you were grinding up the nuts for charosas, to grind up on Shabbos would be a problem. I mean, well, for sure on Shabbos, but if to grind up the nuts on Yantif would be a problem. But to mix the stuff together on Yantif isn't really a problem. So if you already have, let's say I buy ground nuts, so I don't have to, I'm already nuts, but I have to buy more nuts. So so you couldn't do it on Shabbos afternoon. If you need it for the second Seder, you can't do it on Sunday afternoon for Sunday night Seder because that's working on the first night of Yantif for the second night of Yantif. We can't do that. And then in general, we don't want to delay the Seder. So if you would have to prepare this stuff, wait till candlelighting to prepare, it's going to delay your Seder a little bit also. So we would rather not do those things. Even the things that are mutter to do, we would rather not do them. So even the salt water, it's not much of a problem to mix the salt in the water after you make Kiddush, but it's best to prepare that before. So the things to prepare before for the Seder before Yantif, before Shabbos would be again the charosis, the salt water, cooking and broiling the egg, and roasting the egg, and roasting the zroa. And if you need to check your lettuce for your maror lettuce before Shabbos.
If you're gonna use like boiled matzah Friday night.
Okay, we didn't get there yet,
Okay.
but we'll talk about what to do for the meals on Shabbos. So we're still at before Shabbos, and then just in regards to the sudas on Shabbos, depending on what you do, we'll talk about how to prepare for that before Shabbos.
Everything has to be ready for Pesach and Shabbos.
See, so your house has to be all kosher for Pesach before Shabbos. Okay, so now the problem of Shabbos itself, we have to have sudos, and you have to have hamotzi. So if you're going to have, so one thing to do for Shabbos is have challah like you normally have on Shabbos. If you have challah, do not have a lot of challah. Have as much as you're going to eat, and try not to have any extra. Or don't get a big challah if you know you don't usually eat a big challah. So try not to have any extra. So Friday night, what you would do nowadays, it's very easy because you'll use a new plastic tablecloth. Your food will all be cooked in Pesach pots. And if you're going to have bread on the table, the best thing to do is to put your food into disposable dishes and serve it on disposable dishes. And you'll eat your meal on disposable dishes. And when the meal is over, you'll wrap up the tablecloth and put it in the garbage. If there's some crumbs, you don't have to worry about the crumbs in the garbage. If there's a piece of bread, that's not so good. That would be better to crumble it up and flush it down the toilet. That's even for I mean, you don't need to halachically Friday night, but it's better not to have any full pieces of chametz in your house at the end of that meal. Okay, so Friday night is not much of a problem. Now, if you wanted to have bread for Shabbos morning, you would have to finish your meal by 10:15 because the latest time you have to have hamotzi. So if you want to eat bread for your hamotzi for lunch on Shabbos, you have to be done by 10:15 because that's the last time to eat your chametz. So again, if you wanted to do that, when we did it 30 or 31 years ago, whenever it was in the show, we daven at like 6:45. We daven quick, and so people would have time to eat the chametz before whatever time it was that year. But it's always 10:15, 10:30. And again, your food was already cooked in kosher Pesach stuff. So again, put it into disposable dishes to serve in the kitchen, then bring it to the table, and you're eating with all. Yeah, don't use your. It's better not to use the challah knife, even though that's not the worst thing in the world. You try to cut your challah or with a plastic knife. I mean, it wouldn't be a problem to put your challah knife away back in the drawer, but if you tie them shut, you wouldn't be able to tie it on Shabbos. So, if you're eating chametz, so you could again the same way as Friday night, but you'll have to be done by 10:15. And again, wrap up your tablecloth and throw it out. If you have any leftover pieces of bread, you'll for sure have to crumble them in the toilet and flush the toilet. Now, in regard to shalashudas, according to some opinions, or many opinions perhaps, you can't eat shalashudas in the morning. It has to be in the afternoon. So some say, well, we won't worry about that today, and we'll have two meals before 10:15. So you'll wash, eat maybe a piece of fish, bench, walk around the block, wash again, and you have so you have your two meals for your second meal and shalashudas, and you're done with your Suda Shabbos by 10:15. That's method number one. You'll have challah, and that's how you do it. Any questions about using challah for the meal? Okay. Option number two, use egg matzah. So if you want to use egg matzah, Ashkenazim treat egg matzah just like chametz. So you would have to do the same thing you did for challah with the egg matzah. And so for us Ashkenazim, there's no benefit really of using egg matzah over challah, and there's actually one downside. According to some opinions, because the egg matzah you might need to eat a very large amount of we really don't paskin this way, so it's not really a shiloh because if you're kovea suda, if you're eating a certain type of mizonos, but that's going to be your meal, you should probably wash on that mizonos. Because if you're what we call kovea suda, you're establishing your meal over this mizonos that makes it important enough that you could say hamotzi on it and bench afterwards. The partial practical application of that is pizza, according to some opinions. That they say if you're having two pizzas, it's a meal, so you'd wash on pizza, even though it's shiloh if it's really bread or not. But the idea is that something similar to that might apply to the egg matzah, but if because we are going to be kovei suda on the egg matzah, basically using egg matzah would be the same exact status as bread, and we would have to be done with egg matzah at 10:15. Yes.
Holy matzah.
Whole wheat matzah is regular matzah, and you cannot use it on Shabbos. So, so any matzah that you could use on Pesach, you cannot eat Erev Pesach because there's halacha you have to eat. You have to be to eat matzah with gusto, with te'avon, with delight. So you're not allowed to eat any kosher for Pesach matzah Erev Pesach, even though the matzah doesn't say shmura matzah on the box. They do certainly at Strites, they do certain things with the non-shmura matzah, but that in case that someone didn't have real shmura matzah, they did certain enhancements in preparing the regular matzah. So at least according to some opinions, you would fulfill your mitzvah. It's certainly not the best, but any kosher for Pesach matzah, you cannot use in matzah form on Shabbos this year because it's Erev Pesach. Now, Moshe Feinstein says that he says that it's not usher to eat matzah for Friday night because it's not the day of Pesach, but he says it's better not to. But that would be to eat regular Pesach matzah. Okay, so then what we recommend and what I don't think I've ever had challah on Erev Pesach Shabbos, but I've always used boiled matzah. So because we boil the matzah, the taste and the texture changes, so it doesn't taste like matzah. So even though it's certainly not chametz, unless you think that Gebrux makes it chametz, which is a separate point, but you cannot fulfill your mitzvah of matzah on boiled matzah. So you're allowed to eat boiled matzah on Erev Pesach. So Rav Aaron recommended, after talking about the pros and cons, what to do with the bread, what to do with the egg matzah, he said he thinks the best thing is to use boiled matzah. So it's kosher for Pesach, and you could eat it. So because of that, and it's not matzah that you could fulfill your mitzvah. So you could eat it after 10:15. You could eat it up until it's somewhere around 4:20. I forgot what I put in the newsletter, but there's a separate halacha, and that's the first mission Erev Pesachim. Erev Pesachim samach lamincha liyochel adam ad shetachshach. Erev Pesach before mincha kitana, about half hour before, we don't eat in order that we'll be hungry for nighttime. So we're not allowed to eat after about 4:20. So in that case, we could eat our suda, all of our sudos with this boiled matzah. Everything's kosher for Pesach. You could use real dishes, but why do you want to use real dishes for the beginning of a 3-day yontif? Because it's not easy to clean them on yontif or on Shabbos. You certainly couldn't clean them on Shabbos for yontif, so if you use it for lunch. So great idea to use all disposable for Shabbos, even if you're not using any chametz. So the boiled, okay, so you don't have to boil it for more than 2 minutes. And the longer you boil it, the more it's going to fall apart. So what I do, and I made the video 5 years ago, is that we have it's like a deep frying pan, and there's some type of those screens that, well, you can get them for the dollar store cheap, but the screens that you put on top, so like to guard the from splatter when you're like boiling something. So we have a screen that we didn't buy as it came in it and it fits in this pot. Now some of those screens are very big and they won't fit inside the pot, but we have something similar to that that fits inside the pot. So I boil up water, I put the screen in, and then I put the matzah on top, and you need like a big spoon to make sure it goes underneath the water. And probably a minute is probably enough. And the reason about the screen is we also need shleiman. We need, or shlemos. We need full loaves for Lacha Mishnah. So the first time we tried to do it, we cut holes with the scissors in 9 by 13 pans, and we tried, and it did not work well at all. So with this mesh thing with the handle, and you're wearing a glove or thing so you don't get burned, you'll flip it over onto a towel, and hopefully it'll stay in one piece. It could stick to the towel, so there's a lot of hit and miss in regard to doing this. And so you would need at least, and the texture is different. So if it dries out enough, it's okay. And if it doesn't, then it gets pretty mushy and it's pretty weird to eat it. But Greenie asked if he could put it in the chicken soup, and the answer is yes. So if your chicken soup is boiling, you could put the strainer or something on top. Put again, the purpose of the strainer is to keep the matzah whole, so it doesn't fall apart. So yes, you could even put it in your chicken soup and have that. So in that case, you could have all your meals kosher for Pesach. You don't have to worry about cross contamination of chametz, the crumbs from the chametz in your Pesach stuff, and also you could eat shalosh shudas up until around 4:20. Okay, what are your so any questions about the boiled matzah?
Why can't we use matzah meal or fried matzah and like that? For similar thing.
It seems that, well, in regard to fried matzah, it's not clear from many halachic sources that frying is the same as boiling. In order for it to be boiled, it would need to be completely submerged. And when we make fried matzah, you mean with egg?
Yeah.
So there's two problems, but the main thing is it's probably not completely submerged in the egg. So it doesn't have tigun, doesn't have the same, which is the halachic word for frying, doesn't have the same status as bishul, as cooking. So cooking means it's completely submerged in a liquid. So deep frying would have the halachic status of cooking, but making fried matzah, it probably wouldn't.
We wet matzah first.
So you wet the matzah, but that doesn't make it boiled matzah, because it would have to be submerged in the boiling water for it to change the texture of the matzah. Now you probably couldn't be outside with the fried matzah at the Seder, but because it came from real matzah and it hasn't been substantially changed enough, don't do it. Yeah, you can unmute yourself.
Okay, question about matzah, because I can't see keeping that whole matzah whole. But what about like matzah crackers or something that's smaller? What's the minimum size it has to be considered a loaf?
So really, it should have at least a revia. So I mean, so just first of all, a lot of the things that they sell as matzah crackers these days are only matzah style crackers, and they're gluten free. So those aren't hamotzi.
Right.
You can use that. But if it's a real matzah cracker, last time I saw a matzah cracker was a couple of years ago. It was Rakuzins. I think they had round ones. Those are probably marginal for the size of hamotzi, but it's probably okay to boil something that size and use it as your hamotzi.
Okay.
I mean, I haven't seen other matzah crackers to know what size they are.
So the other question I have is for those who are gluten free and use oat matzah.
Yeah.
So is it okay to boil
You boil
oat
that oat matzah also. Yeah, that's not a problem.
Okay.
Just oat matzah is very soft to begin with.
I know.
I don't know how. Maybe try.
Unless the thing is the shmurs are so big. I've got the oat shmura also.
Oh,
but
you have handmade.
I have both.
Oh, so like I was saying, so what the way I do the boiled matzah is I have a square machine matzah, but the pan that I have, like I said, it's a frying pan that this screen fits inside, and a whole piece of matzah fits inside easily.
Okay.
But
And
it's not like a soup pan. It's not the walls aren't super high, but it's maybe like 4 inches. So it's deeper than a regular frying pan, but it's not a pot.
okay. And the other thing I was gonna say is it's not supposed to happen again till like 2050 or something, but that could be a shul fundraiser. We kasher the kitchen and we make
Oil
boiled
matzah.
matzah. Anyway, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And you put it in the microwave and wet the matzah and put it in the microwave?
If you would put in the microwave long enough that the water is going to boil in there, then yeah, but it's probably going to get too soggy. If you want to boil the water in the microwave first and put the matzah in and then put it in for another 30 seconds so that you know that it's meaning because when you put a matzah in, the matzah is cooler than the water. So the matzah causes the water to cool off, so it's not necessarily boiling when you put it back in. You have to make sure it reaches the boil again. It's the same thing when we kasher stuff. If the thing's at a rolling boil and you put some things in there, especially if it's metal, they're cooler at room temperature. It cools off, the boil. You have to make sure that it returns to the rolling boil while the whatever metal that you're kashering is in there. So you just have to. So yeah, that's a possibility. Um, okay, and then in regard to shalashudas, if you ate challah or egg matzah, so you can't eat after 10:15. So what do you do? And according to the opinions that you can eat shalashudas before the afternoon, so either eat chicken or meat or fish or fruit. Um, but obviously nothing mizonos. We wouldn't eat stuff with egg with better not to eat the matzah mel on Erev Pesach. So we can't even have hamotzi. I mean, certainly can't have hamotzi. In those cases, you couldn't have mizonos either. So if you want, probably a good thing would be to eat olives or dates or figs or grapes or, so you could at least mention Shabbos in your bracha achrona. Yeah, you could eat anything, but I'm saying the best thing is something that you have to make the equivalent of the alamichya on, because in that bracha you get to mention Shabbos. But when you eat apples, you just say a brain of fashos, so you don't mention Shabbos in the bracha achrona. But yeah, any of the things you could eat is shal shabbos. There is an opinion brought down. You could be yoter with divrei Torah, so you could learn. You don't even have to eat anything. If I'm not mistaken, the Vilna Gaon explained that it's only on this Shabbos because there's nothing else that you could eat. There's no. It doesn't literally mean that you fulfill your mitzvah of learning Torah, but obviously you should learn in the afternoon. But it means there's no obligation to eat shal shabbos that Shabbos, because how can you do it? You can't eat that close to the evening. You can't have chametz. So the best thing to do is so you'll just learn. You don't have shal shabbos. So there is no chiyuv of shal shabbos according to this one opinion. This year on Erev Pesach. But see, the Mechaber paskins that the best thing to do for shal shabbos is to wash every week. But he says he's worried about the opinions that say that you don't have to have hamotzi for shal shabbos. So the halacha is, so the way the Shulchan Aruch paskins, if you forget ritzei in benching on Shabbos, you have to repeat benching. But if you forgot it at shal shabbos, you don't have to repeat benching, because maybe you didn't have to bench. Maybe you didn't have to wash. Maybe you could have only needed mizonos. So because maybe you didn't have to wash, you didn't have to bench. So the Machaber paskin strictly. We're worried that you really need to have hamotzi, but we're worried about the opinions that you don't have to have the hamotzi in regard to having to repeat benching. So it's what brisker chumrah that the Machaber has. So that's about eating on Shabbos Erev Pesach.
The matzo balls, they're boiled.
You would think that if you could make a hamotzi on boiled matzah, you can make it on knedlach also. But I haven't seen anyone who explicitly says that you can make hamotzi on that. But I heard explicitly from Avarn that you could boil the piece of matzah and make hamotzi on it. So theoretically, I agree with you, but I haven't seen anyone else to say it, so I'm not going to be the first to say it. Because also part of the problem is that it's not so clear if you'd make hamotzi on something that was boiled. We make hamotzi on stuff that's baked. So the matzah, the boiled matzah was baked, and then we boiled it. But when you use matzah mel, it's true the matzah mel was baked, but it's all crumbs now, so it's we don't remember that it was matzah at one point. So I'm not sure if it's something that was only boiled you can make, and that's why there's a shaila according to some what to make what bracha to make on bagels. Some say because they're the real bagels that you boil first and then bake, they wouldn't be hamotzi because it was primarily cooked by boiling, not by baking. So I wouldn't recommend making hamotzi on the Canado.
Okay, what about if you were having a Canelo or Shabbos? Just this hurts.
Friday night wouldn't be a problem. To do it on Erev Pesach, there's a Magen Avram, I think, who's discourages it. In case you could be Yotze, which we say you couldn't be, but in case you could be, well, he says not to have any matzah mel. So the thing nowadays is that there's plenty of the non-gebruxed matzo ball mixes. So there you can have your matzo ball and eat it too, but it doesn't have real matzah in it.
Yeah. From potato.
Yes, another form of potato. Okay, so that's in regard to. Okay, so now anything special things to worry about for the Seder itself, because it's on Pesach. So we have to start late because we have to wait till Shabbos is out to light candles. As the women should say, or whoever lights should say Baruch HaMavdil Ben Kodesh LaKodesh before they light, and then light the Yantiv candles with Shachiyanu. And then you could set the table and start the Seder. The good thing is you don't have to wait for the food to warm up because you're saying the Haggadah, so there's plenty of time to then put the food on the blach, or you could take off the blach because it's Yantif, and there's plenty of time for stuff to warm up during the Seder, so you could start pretty soon. In davening, we'll say Vatodienu, which is what we say. It's like the Havdalah. It's what Antachan Antanu is on a regular Motzei Shabbos. Vatodienu is when the Motzei Shabbos is Yantif. In Kiddush, we make a special Kiddush called Yak Nahas. So Yain Kiddush near Havdalah Zman. We say it's a regular Kiddush, Borei Priagafen, and then the Kiddush bracha. Then you make the bracha on the candle. So what do we do for the candle? Rav Aaron said the best thing to do is if you have a clear incandescent. Well, he didn't say incandescent because in those days the lights were incandescent, but not fluorescent, not LED. If you see the filament that's lit up, you can make the bracha of Havdalah on that.
How about this?
So don't light a Havdalah candle because on Yantif you could light you can transfer a flame, but you can't extinguish it. So if you'd light a Havdalah candle, you'd have to learn to burn all the way down, which we don't usually have a big burning huge fire like that for a long time. Or you could just put two candles together. So you could take two Shabbos candles and put one next to the other one for the bracha, and then just put that other candle in a candle holder and let that burn down. A couple years ago, an institution in town here, shall remain unnamed. I didn't have time to try this out, but they were selling them, and basically, it seems what they did was they put two Hanukkah candles in very hot water for a little bit of time, and they twisted them together, and they didn't do such a great job, in my opinion. So that's and then you would wrap a little bit of foil at the bottom to make it fit in a regular candle stick holder, and then you would let that burn down so that or for a bunch of years already at the stores they have it's called Yak Nahas candle. It's a little bit wider and maybe a little bit flatter than the regular Shabbos candle, but it has two wicks in there. So it goes in the regular candlestick holder, but it has two flames because it has two wicks in there. So you could just light that candle from existing flame and use that for Havdalah during Kiddush. And again, of course, you have to leave if you're not leaving, if you don't have a gas, if you're not leaving on a gas range to take a fire from, or you have electric, light a Yorta candle recommended, not the cheap either get.
They've got 3-day ones.
They have 3-day ones. That's the best thing because it's probably not going to go out and it'll last for the first night, the second night, and all that stuff. Yeah, so get a big candle, so you can have an existing flame to transfer to, so you can light candles and stuff for the second night and have it go. So Yak Nahaz, Yayin Kiddush, the Berei Ha'esh, and then the Hamavdil ben Kodesh LaKodesh, and then the last thing you make is Shachiyanu. Yakna has the Zayin Izman, the time between Shachianu, and then you'll recline to the left and drink the Kiddush, which is the first of the 4 cups.
So you can't take the candles you lit for Shabbos and put them together.
I've never seen people do that. It's normally, I mean, maybe something we don't want to, maybe we don't want to make mitzvahs chavilos. We don't want to bundle up mitzvahs and just so in order to not give them double duty, we say each mitzvah is important enough to have its own candle. Not that it's not a mitzvah to have a Havdalah candle, that we have a fire after Shabbos, but it's I mean the Mishnah mentions it in Brachos in the 8th parak, so it goes way back, but it's not a mitzvah, but it's to commemorate that. Well, I guess Hashem told Adam how to make a fire Saturday night. So to commemorate, it's the first time that mankind used fire. We use it after Shabbos. So Yak Nahaz, we mentioned that some of the stuff you would prepare charosas and all that other stuff before Shabbos, and then there's a bracha, the bracha right before at the end of Magid. The bracha at the very end of Magid, when we're holding the cup before we say the Borei Pri Hagafen, on the second cup, there's a bracha. Bracha Hashem Asher Galanu v'Galas Havoseinu Mitzrayim. You redeemed us, and you redeemed our fathers from Egypt. V'higianu halayla zelecha b'matzah mar. Ken Hashem Lokeinu ve'Elokei Avoseinu. Yageinu l'modim l'galim acher rabbeinu l'kersenu sham smeichim v'yanirach v'sant v'avodosacha. So the regular text is v'nochal sham min azvachim min apsachim. We'll eat from the offerings and from the psachim. So the offerings means the other korbanos. So normally you bring other korbanos and you eat that as your main course, and you have the korban pesach as the dessert. But on Saturday night, we would flip that bracha. We would say min apsachim min azvachim from the korban pesach and from the offerings, because the korban pesach we were allowed to bring on Shabbos. The other korban we're not allowed to bring on Shabbos. So normally on a year like this, you would just have to eat non-korban meat for your main course and have the korban pesach without the zvachim first. So we would change the order of that bracha, and that's the reason why we would change that. If you didn't change it, it's not a problem. You don't have to do Magid over again. And then there is one thing in Nirtza, not that I think. No. I thought there's nothing in Nirtza, but like I say, it's not the thing. Okay, so I think we covered the things we need to cover for this year: Pesach and the first Seder and Erev Pesach and Erev Pesach and Erev Pesach for the Taanis Bechor. Any questions? Okay, a very, very brief thought for Pesach, and that is the Rambam says, when he talks about the laws of conversion, Hilchos Yisur Bia, Perik Yud Gimel, when 3 things Yisrael entered the covenant with Mila, Bris Mila, Tefillah in the Mikvah, and a Korban. Mila was in Egypt, as the pasuk says that any uncircumcised male cannot eat the Korban Pesach. So Moshe made sure that they had Bris Mila, because most of them, well, Rambam says all of them, except Shevet Levi, had stopped doing Bris Mila in Mitzrayim, except for Shevet Levi. And because of that, in Parshas Zos HaBracha, Moshe's bracha to Shevet Levi says Uvritzcha Yinsoru, so they guarded the bris, meaning bris milah. Halacha Gimel, the Tvila, the dipping in the mikvah, was in the desert before giving of the Torah, as the pasuk says, "Sanctify yourselves today and tomorrow, and clean your clothes, launder your clothes." So that referred to being in the mikvah. And Korban, as the pasuk says, I think this is in the end of Parshas Mishpatim, and he sent the youth of Bnei Yisrael, and they brought burnt offerings. So it was brought on behalf of all Klal Yisrael. Halacha Dalet, v'chein ledaros, and for all generations, when a non-Jewish person wants to enter the covenant and to be included under the wings of the divine presence, and he accepts the burden of Torah, he needs bris milah and tvila and a korban. And if it's a female, just tvila and a mikvah and a korban. And then it talks about what the korban of the behema is. But nowadays, that we don't have a korban, the man would just do the bris milah and tvila, and when the Beis Hamikdash gets rebuilt, he's going to bring a korban. So the Rambam says that those things happened in Egypt, but according to some opinions, the korban Pesach was a korban of the Gerus, and that was in Mitzrayim. So, even contemporarily, it seems that there's two approaches or two philosophies, two viewpoints of how to understand the process of conversion. One approach is, and I mean, you need elements of both. One approach is that this term is a little bit not a great term, but it's an accurate term, an initiation rite. Lahavdil, Steve is a big expert at the sororities and the fraternities. They have initiation hazings and whatever they have. Lahavdil, Aleph Avdalos. So bringing a Mila and Tvila and Korban is an initiation rite to become Jewish. So according to some, not the Rambam, but according to some, the Korban Pesach in Mitzrayim was the Korban of the Gerus. So bringing a Korban was a form of, that's initiation rite. And I don't have time to get into this, but based on a Meshech Chachma in Parshas Baloscha by Pesach Sheni, they talk about the fact that the Sifri, I think, says you might think if someone they convert, because it says you bring Korban Pesach kachem kager, like you bring it, a ger would bring it. So some say someone converts, they should bring a Korban Pesach. Why do you think that someone who converts would bring a Korban Pesach? Well, the answer is, since we became fully Jewish, I mean, there was an element of Judaism, as Rav Aaron, I think, would explain. I don't know if he actually said it this way, but that's the way I understand what he's saying. There was an element of Judaism that was started from Avram and that passed down, but everyone was individual as a Jew. But there wasn't a collective Jewish people yet until Har Sinai. So according to the Rambam, Har Sinai, that the Mila, Bris, and Korban went to Har Sinai. According to the ones who hold that the Korban Pesach was like the Gerus, so then it happened at the night that we brought the Korban Pesach in Mitzrayim. So that's when we had there's one unit of the Kedushas Haklal, that we're one nation of Jews, the sanctity of the community. So that's an element of Korban Pesach as an initiation rite. But another approach of conversion, and it's not a less important approach, but it's more destructive and not constructive, is that ger has to reject avodah zarah as part of their conversion. So bringing the Korban Pesach was a complete repudiation and rejection of the pagan culture and religion of Mitzrayim, because their god was Aries or whatever they called it, so the goat. And so we shachted their god. So there's their bigger, we mentioned in Parshat Chodesh last Shabbos when we learned it. So is there anything more that they could upset the Egyptians by killing their god? That's rejection of avodah zarah. According to some opinions, the fact that we roasted it whole, you can still see that it's a goat. According to the Rambam says in Mor Nevuchim, for the reason for the prohibition of basar b'chalav, you can, on a Torah level, you can't boil meat in milk. Midrabanan, even if you don't boil it, but you roast it together or you fry it together, any type of combination, even if it's not, we spoke about the boiling when we talk about boiling the matzah, but even if it's not, but on a Torah level, it's boiling, because the Rambam says the pagans would cook a goat in its mother's milk fully boiled. So we roasted it to show that we don't boil it the way that the other religions do, things like that. Now, some say, and they're not wrong either, that it's not just that you're cutting yourself off from avodah zarah by doing this. Some say that gerus is actually a purification process from that because you did avodah zarah, you need to be purified. And I mean, I'm sure a lot of people mentioned it when I was looking for this week. The Tartamima I saw mentions it, but the Tevila as a purification process. So from avodah zarah, but there is a halacha that if someone chas v'shalom a Jew would become a pagan, and if they reject their the avodah zarah practices, want to return, they have to go through a mini gerus ceremony. It's real. It's halach. It's in Shulchan Aruch. But the point is that they have to either reject or purify themselves from having worshipped the avodah zarah. So the Tor Shlema, Reb Nachum Mendel Kasher, goes to great length, bringing many proofs, and he says that the prohibition against chametz is very unique. You have to search for chametz. It's not just enough not to have it. You have to make sure you don't have it. You have to burn anything that you still have. You can't even own it if it's somewhere on the other side of the world. So he said, and he's not wrong, is that we see that there's a connection between the prohibition of owning chametz and avodah zarah, and just like you have to destroy avodah zarah in Eretz Yisrael, if you see any avodah zarah, you have to go make sure there's no avodah zarah in Eretz Yisrael, and if there's, you have to destroy it so it can never be used. So he says that the prohibition of against chametz is also a way of rejecting avodah zarah. Obviously, the mitzvah of eating matzah, there's many reasons, whether it's because we ate matzahs as slaves, or whether we ate the matzah because we got freed in a hurry, didn't have time um, to rise, whether it's bread of affliction, bread of freedom, both, a couple other possible reasons, but so the point is that Korban Pesach and perhaps a prohibition against chametz are certain rejections of avodah zarah. So that's just a very quick thought that I don't have time to elaborate more on, but there's a lot of truth in it, and so I'll mention that as a thought.
Question.
Yeah.
What are we doing for Pesach?
Oh, so at the shul, we're gonna daven regular time. So if you want to eat chametz or egg matzah for your meal, don't come to shul, or daven chachris and eat, and then come for musaf. But we are not. We probably will be done close. Well, no, we'll be done after 10:15. So if you're planning on eating chametz or egg matzah, don't come in the morning here to Kesser Marav. We're gonna daven at 8:45. We're not gonna have kiddush or shal shudas in shul. And we're, like I've been mentioning in the announcements, we recommend people use boiled matzah. But some people told me, I'm going to eat chametz, so I'm not going to come. Or what should I do? I said, don't come. And I tell you not to go to shul, but you can't be at shul and have your suda. Right. And probably my father's going to repeat a lot of these same halachos on Shabbos afternoon in the pre-Shabbos Agadol drasha. But that should be what we need to know to be ready for Pesach this year. But again, the executive summary: the fast is on Thursday for the firstborn. The bedika is Thursday night. It's a regular bedika. We burn the chametz the way we normally would at the regular time on Friday, but we don't say the kol chamira. We spoke about preparing for the stuff you have to prepare before Shabbos. We said how to make hamotzi, different things for that. And on Shabbos before 11:33, we have to make the kol chamira, renouncing all ownership. So if you're not in shul, remember to do that when you're throwing out your benching, right before or after you bench from your chametz hamotzi. If you're in shul, we'll remind you to say it in shul. In shul, we will remind you to say it also. I think that's the executive summary. Okay.
You doing this?